We are creatures of desire. What we most desire is meaning. What makes us suffer most is a lack of meaning.
The Meaningful Life with Andrew G. Marshall. Marital therapist, author, and communications trainer Andrew G. Marshall invites guests from all walks of life to discuss what makes life meaningful.
Hello, I'm Andrew G. Marshall. Welcome to The Meaningful Life. We're available on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, and wherever you find your podcasts. It's something we do every minute of our lives, and most of the time we don't even give it a second's thought. What is it? Breathing. However, our breath can help calm ourselves down, understand our emotions, center ourselves, and even be a gateway to something spiritual. So I've been planning an episode on the transformative power of breathwork for a long time, and here it is. My witness is Dr. Richard Blake, who has a PhD in psychology and a postgraduate certificate in psychotherapy, and is a certified breathwork instructor. How did you wake up to your breath?
Yeah, I started on a healing journey of my own, struggles with anxiety, depression, eating disorders, all that stuff. And psychotherapy took me some way towards recovery, but it didn't take me all the way. So it got me sort of off rock bottom. But during my therapy sessions, my therapist pointed out that whenever I would talk about something particularly troubling to me, my breath would get really short and I would struggle to get over my breath. It was like I couldn't take a deep enough breath. And he suggested I go see this guy who he'd heard about called the Breath Guru, Alan Dolan. And I was up for trying anything. And I booked in a session with Alan and I thought he was going to teach me how to breathe, functional breathing, how to relax myself by slowing down my breath, something basic like that. But what he does is conscious connected breath work. And so I went for this session and he taught me this technique. It's quite a complicated technique. It's not something you just figure out on your own. And he guided me through this session for about 40 minutes. And at the end of it, I came back and I just sort of woke up from this unbelievable altered state. And I was just like, what happened? Where have I been? How many days has it been that I've been breathing? And he was like, yeah, it's only been 40 minutes. Tell me about your session. And of course, it was a non-ordinary state of consciousness created by this breathwork technique. I was in this land of pink fluffy clouds and I felt amazing afterwards. I was like, wow, this is incredibly powerful. Like at that time, I'd done a lot of meditation. I'd done things like Reiki and yoga. And I would come out of those sessions and be like, I think something has happened. I think I feel better. Whereas this was just like, holy smokes, what just happened? Where have I been? I immediately signed my wife up for a session the next day. And then we started going regularly for sessions with Alan. And then we did his mentorship program to become conscious connected breathwork facilitators. And yeah, that was what I needed to overcome the eating disorder and overcome the sort of the remnants of my mental health challenges.
I'm having trouble understanding how you could have got into this hole. Can you sort of help me and get a bigger picture of you?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm a sensitive person. I had some challenges as a younger person. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but in my childhood, I wasn't particularly happy, depressed as a young child, suicidal as a young child, quite anxious as a young child. And that sort of started age 14 and lasted about 15 years after that.
So quite deep psychological problems we're talking about here then, if you were suicidal when you were a teenager.
Yeah, suicidal as a young child and as well as a teenager. Yeah, I think my first sort of suicide attempt was maybe age 7 or 8, that kind of time.
That is incredibly young. How do you feel looking back at that moment? Because I'm sitting here in a bit of shock, to be perfectly honest.
How do I feel? Yeah, well, I guess, my therapy journey did, it started with, as I say, like throwing people under the bus. People did things to me that they shouldn't have done. But I have gone through a long process of forgiveness and things like that. And I understand their challenges and their motivations for doing those types of things. And, those people had their own mental health challenges as well. I feel okay about it. I just feel like, okay, well, that's great, because it gave me, motivation to go on to do a PhD in psychology and help other people and be able to speak to other people who have had similar challenges. Certainly there was a time where I was resentful and rageful, but I feel like that process has been completed.
So it seems to me that you've been through a range of different kind of stops on the way to breath work. The first thing you did which was what most people do, is they try and get themselves a good job and sort of do like their parents did. How did you find the corporate world?
Yeah, awful, absolutely horrible. I was quite good in school. Like, I was captain of teams, head of houses, decent grades, scholarships into sixth form. And I just thought life would kind of go like that. I was good at following orders and picking things up. And then I went into the corporate world. I'd sort of scraped my way through university. I'd got a master's degree in real estate, despite having almost no interest in it. And then I guess, the biggest challenge I had.
Hang on a second. If you've got no interest in real estate, why do a master's in it?
Good question. To please my parents, effectively. Yeah. My dad was a chartered surveyor. I became a chartered surveyor. There was a family company that I was sort of told I would work in. But, as I grew up, I realized this is really not what I want to be doing. And going into the corporate world, I worked for a big company, like a FTSE 100 company, and I got on a graduate scheme. And that was a real awakening. Like, it was like, wow, you actually have to work. You actually have to be here at 8 a.m. and leave at 6. You can't just turn up at 10 and 4 and be on the internet all day. And that, was one of the biggest challenges, actually. Like, that first year of that graduate program was when I actually attempted suicide more seriously as an adult, and I was getting close to being fired, and I was just a joke. I was just not focused. I was turning up with, bleary-eyed from getting drunk at the weekends. My shirts weren't ironed. I was skiving off, and I feel really sorry for all the people who had to sort of manage me, because I was just such a poor employee, and they were really good to me, and I really took advantage. And actually, that I had a big turning point of suicide attempt, had a few weeks off of work, then found this therapist. And then, my trajectory changed, because I was like, okay, I can't just go through life doing what I want to do. I have to do the things that people around me want me to do, like work hard and not be on the internet all day when I'm being paid to work.
It seems to me that for most people, a serious suicide attempt would be a wake-up call that something wasn't working. Was it? Because the way you're talking about it doesn't sound like that at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't working. My attitude it stank, basically. I like that saying of like, you don't get to choose what you want. I don't want to want ice cream, but I do want ice cream, and I absolutely love ice cream. And it was at that time where it's like, I want to be playing video games and just be goofing off with my friends. But then I had like a deep knowing of like, no, I need to want to work. And that was a great turning point for me. It's like, okay, now I want to work. Now I get into the office first. Now I'm doing deals. Now I'm getting credit. Now I'm getting better bonuses. People like me more. I'm happier when other people like me more. Yeah, it's quite sad, I think, for some people who they never have that realization that you can't just do what you want in life if what you want is not like of any contribution to anyone else. Like, we live in a society and a community, and you have to contribute. You have to be a net positive on your community. And I was just a massive drain.
And you became a fitness model, and you really went to the gym. And I've seen pictures of you with six packs and abs and the full 9 yards. Was that around this time?
Yeah, it was. So from about age 18, I kind of discovered that, people were impressed by physiques, and it was my goal from about age 15 to get into Men's Health magazine, because I thought, okay, well, I'm depressed and I don't get much attention from girls or guys. So if I get into phenomenal shape and I get into this magazine, all my problems will go away. I won't be depressed. I won't have low self-esteem. I will get the attention I want. And I did that, age like 23, and it was great for a few months. It was nice being like recognized on the streets a couple of times. And then I just went straight back into an even deeper depression and then an eating disorder. yeah, it was that kind of lesson that everyone has to learn of like, goals won't make you happy. Like achieving things won't make you happy if underneath that you have more severe problems.
So what do you think you were looking for then?
Attention, recognition. I was a pretty lonely person, so I guess a girlfriend as well.
You can't get a girlfriend with abs and a six-pack.
Well, I mean, no, not really. Not when you're a nightmare to be around and, as I say, a drain on your community and society. Yeah, girls may be initially impressed with that, but they don't really want someone who's that self-absorbed.
So I think to actually really begin to understand about breath work, I think we should do some, because I'm at the moment a little bit puzzled about how it can bring around such a transformation. So why don't you try me out, so to speak?
Yeah, so the conscious connected breath work, that is, as I say, obviously from my description, you can tell it's pretty potent, and maybe I'll describe a little bit more about it and explain why we couldn't do it on a podcast for sort of legal and ethical reasons. And then we can do another exercise that would be more appropriate for your listeners. But yeah, so conscious connected breath work, as I say, it puts you in a non-ordinary state of consciousness. They have put people in MRI scans and had people do this type of breath work, and they found that brain waves alter as much as a moderate dose of psilocybin. They've also done EEG scans, so scanning brain waves, and again, brain waves change to the same extent as with a moderate dose of psychedelics. And yeah, there's a fair few contraindications to this because it is so potent. You know, you can't do it with people with extreme mental illnesses, with people with glaucoma, with people with heart disease, with people with recent surgeries, because it's quite vigorous. It's not very relaxing. And it's not something you can like just do accidentally, because you wouldn't want to. Imagine you're driving and you suddenly do conscious connected breath work and you go into an altered state and then you crash your car. It is something that has to be really deliberate. Yeah, as I say, you need waivers and things like that to do it responsibly.
So what are we going to do? Because it's not appropriate to go off into the land of pink clouds at the moment. Yeah,
well, another aspect of of breath work is functional breathing. And this is more about like teaching people how to breathe. And, you know, most people think, oh, I should breathe deeper. You know, I should take in more oxygen and that will help me to breathe better. And actually that's not necessarily the case. We actually want to be breathing light, slow and deep. So most people are actually over breathing. They're actually breathing too much, too frequently. So if someone breathes more than 20 breaths per minute, that's called dyspnea. That is like an actual condition of over breathing. But when I test people, and people can test themselves with things like the Aura ring I'm wearing, and most people will be in the range of like 13 to 17 breaths per minute. The ideal breath is actually 5 breaths per minute, but you can't really do that during the day. And yeah, a lot of people will do exercises to slow their breath down to 5 breaths per minute during a meditation. And one of the problems of overbreathing is that you become sensitive to carbon dioxide, and we want to be tolerant to carbon dioxide because carbon dioxide is actually the trigger to breathe. So a lot of people think that, why do I breathe when I'm holding my breath? Or what's the trigger? A lot of people think it's a lack of oxygen, but it's actually the carbon dioxide that triggers the urge to breathe. And also, you can't breathe properly without carbon dioxide. A lot of people think carbon dioxide is a waste gas, but it's not. It's actually the trigger to release the oxygen from the hemoglobin. So that's called the Bohr effect. Basically, you know, you breathe in oxygen through your nose, and then oxygen gets transported from the lungs into the bloodstream. But from the bloodstream to the cells, from the hemoglobin to the cells, you have to have carbon dioxide to trigger that release to the cells. So that's what happens when people have panic attacks. You know, they're breathing, they're hyperventilating, they're breathing so much. You would think if breathing more is good, then having a panic attack, you should be fine, right? But we know that when someone has a panic attack, they're not fine because what they're doing is blowing off all their carbon dioxide. And so while they're at 100% blood oxygen saturation, they have 0 carbon dioxide. So the hemoglobin clings on to the oxygen and that person feels like they're suffocating. So what we can do is a little exercise to increase our tolerance to carbon dioxide. So this one is called the 1121 breath.
1121.
Yes. So that's a ratio. So we'll start with like a 4-4-8-4. So that'll be an inhale for a count of 4, a hold for a count of 4, an exhale for a count of 8, and then another hold for a count of 4. And then you can either stay with that one or you can increase it to 5-5-10-5, and then 6-6, 12-6.
And why are we doing this?
So by slowing down our breath, firstly, we'll be relaxing. You know, when you breathe with a longer exhale than an inhale, you activate the parasympathetic portion of the nervous system. Also, this exercise is obviously relaxing. It lowers blood pressure. It increases alpha brain waves. It activates the parasympathetic, rest and digest. But it's also, because it's a little bit of a challenge, right? Because it's a long breath hold, you're going to be increasing your tolerance to carbon dioxide. And when you have more tolerance to carbon dioxide, you can do more with exercise. You can go for longer. You can also, as I say, people who are overly sensitive to carbon dioxide, that can trigger anxiety. So a lot of people's anxiety, I don't know the exact stats. One person said 80% of people with anxiety have dysfunctional breathing. I don't know. I haven't been able to find that study, but it's one that's often bandied around. So by increasing, as we're doing this exercise, as we are getting longer, you know, going from 4-4-8-4 to 5-5-8-5, we are teaching our body to be a bit more comfortable with that carbon dioxide. We are telling the chemoreceptors in our blood and the amygdala, which regulates blood chemistry in our breathing, we're telling it, okay, it's actually safe to have a little bit of carbon dioxide build up. And yeah, the more tolerant you can be of that carbon dioxide, the more resilient you can be, the longer you can hold your breath, the longer you can do exercise.
And the less anxious we're going to be.
If dysfunctional breathing is a problem, yes.
Okay, so why don't you lead us through it?
Sure. Okay. So if you'd like to settle in, ideally you're seated. You can be lying down as well if you'd like. Allow your eyes to close and then just bringing your attention to your body. And we'll start with a body scan, just beginning at the top of the head, scanning down through the neck, and the torso, and the legs, and the feet. And then bringing your attention to your breath, breathing in and out through the nose. We'll start with this 1-1-2-1 technique. So we'll start with an inhale through the nose, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through the nose, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hold, 2, 3, 4. And we'll increase it by 1 this time. So inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. And coming back to regular breathing pattern, in and out through the nose. Okay. How are you feeling, Andrew?
I'm feeling fine. I'm sort of a little bit puzzled. Why am I not allowed to breathe out through my mouth? Because that's what I'm sort of used to doing. And certainly breathing out through my nose for a long time, it was much harder to regulate my breathing out. So that was my primary thing, was curious.
Yeah. So the reason we want to breathe in and out through our nose is because, well, the nose is a breathing device. The mouth is a speaking device, a chewing device, a swallowing device, a vomiting device. The nose's only function is breath, whereas the mouth has all these other things. And when we breathe in and out through our nose, well, firstly, the nose conditions the air. It humidifies the air. It filters the air with the mucosal lining and the hairs. That filters out pollen, viruses, bacteria, mold. If we breathe in and out through our mouth, we miss that filter, and, we can take in more pollen and viruses and bacteria into our lungs if we, let things go straight through the mouth. Another reason to breathe in through the nose is because of nitric oxide production. So nitric oxide is a gas that, firstly, is a vasodilator, so it opens up the nostrils. It opens up the bronchi as well, so it helps with oxygen perfusion. So it allows the oxygen to get into the lungs and open it up even more. Nitric oxide is also antiviral and antibacterial as well, so it's helping us filter that air in another way. It's also relaxing as well. Nitric oxide can help with relaxing and anxiety. And when we breathe out through our mouth, we're losing a lot of moisture. If you want to fog your glasses, your sunglasses, you don't fog them with your nose, you fog them with your mouth. And what happens when you fog them is, you get all those water droplets coming out of your mouth. So, if you breathe through your mouth too much, you will dehydrate yourself. This can especially happen at night. This is why mouth taping has become quite a popular thing, is because... You want to say something there?
Oh, I was going to say mouth taping. What's mouth taping?
It's as simple as it sounds. So just placing a bit of tape over the lips to keep them closed during the night, because often what happens is people who have dysfunctional breathing through their nose, they resort to the mouth because there's less resistance there. And just finally, I just go back to another reason to breathe out through the nose rather than the mouth is because the nose does provide that resistance. And one of the key things to relaxing through our breathing is slowing our breath down. If we breathe out through the mouth, there's no resistance. And you can breathe too quickly. Obviously, you can consciously change that, just by pursing your lips. You can slow down the breathing a lot more. So if you wanted to do that 1-1-2-1 exercise with an exhale through the mouth, that's fine, because your breath has been slowed by you consciously doing an 8-second exhale.
Because I found I couldn't actually I can do an 8-second exhale through my mouth, but I found I couldn't do it through my nose. I was running out of air about sort of on the count of 5.
Yeah. So what that would suggest is that you've got some blockages in your nose, and the more you breathe in and out through your nose, the easier it gets, because your nose just starts to open up. And because the more you breathe in and out through your nose, the more nitric oxide gets produced. And therefore, probably if you stuck with it for another few minutes, that nitric oxide would have built up in the nostrils and made that exhale easier. Of course, there are people who have serious problems with their noses, like deviated septums and things like that. That can mean that they need surgery to breathe through their nose. You don't look like you have a deviated septum, but I can't tell from here. It could just be from a lack of use. And if you used it a little bit more, you would get that back. It could be that you have really blocked sinuses as well. So I really like neti pots. A neti pot with some salt, baking soda and xylitol can really help to clear up the nostrils as well.
So how does the breath work help with the psychological aspects? Because we've been very physical at the moment.
Yeah, so that technique we just did, is great for anxiety. It's great for down-regulation of the nervous system. It's getting into the rest and digest. And there's loads of exercises that are just really simple, like cyclical sighing, 4-7-8 breaths, box breathing, that can be really useful for like increasing tolerance to pain.
Box breathing?
So that's a similar one. It's just 4-4-4-4. So it's inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4. And I think that's the one invented by the Navy SEALs to help them deal with pain and really stressful events. But what I did my PhD research on was this conscious connected breath work. And that's the one I think has like the most legs in terms of like an actual treatment for mental illness. That box breathing, the 1-1-2-1, great for in the moment, helping people manage their stress. But the thing about conscious connected breathing is it's more like a psychedelic, as I've said, like it puts people into these altered states. And as we know from psychedelic assisted therapy, we're seeing things like treatment resistant depression going away, fear of death going away, eating disorders going away. And I think conscious connected breathwork has the same kind of potential. Do you want to ask something?
Yeah, I was going to say, how?
How? Yes. Good question. So there are several theories, okay? I'm not going to go through all of them because no one really knows. But one of my favorite ones is this pivotal mental states theory. So this came from the psychedelic assisted research. So a pivotal mental state is basically where the brain becomes incredibly plastic and proper change can happen in this state. Stanislav Grof, the founder of this kind of breathwork, he was a psychiatrist, and he would say, his clients could give you dissertations in their problems, in their attachment disorders, what happened to them, but the problems didn't change until they went into these non-ordinary states of consciousness through either psychedelics or conscious connected breathwork. And what this breathwork does is probably creating a kind of prediction error in the brain, where the brain can't really compute what's going on because you're breathing in this peculiar way. And then this pivotal mental state happens, this increase of plasticity happens, and then someone can go, for my whole life I've known I should stop smoking, but I've never been able to stop smoking. But then in this altered state, I just had this deep, deep sense of knowing, and I came out and I stopped smoking. And the evolutionary theory for why this might be is like, when we were living in tribes, let's say something really serious happened. The tribal leader was eaten by a tiger. You'd been camping out in this cave for the last few years, but now you realize, okay, we've got to make some serious changes because this tiger now knows where we live and we've lost our leader. We could just be like, oh, okay, let's just stay here and carry on smoking, like the smoking example. We could just carry on living in this cave. But we know for our survival, we have to leave. We have to make these changes. We have to kick ourselves out of this routine. And breathwork and psychedelics seem to be able to create this change without that life-threatening situation.
And do you think that men and women open up in a different kind of way?
I do, yes. One of the, I think, benefits of conscious connected breathwork is that it doesn't require much verbal processing. Obviously, we're going to talk in a kind of heteronormative way, but the stereotype is, women process their emotions more easily with verbal communication. They're more emotionally fluent, whereas men are more internal. They process things in different ways. And I think this is a kind of growing awareness in psychotherapy, is that some men and women need different treatments, right? Women seem to benefit more from talk-based therapy, whereas men seem to benefit more from other things like ice baths, sauna, exercise, breathwork, psychedelics. And in my study, so for my PhD, I ran the largest ever randomized control trial on conscious connected breathwork. And as with pretty much all psychological research, there was there's way more women than men in the study because they volunteer more. It was about 80% women, 20% men. And we did actually find a slight increase in reduction. So we tested anxiety symptoms. That's what I should say, is we did, a randomized control trial. People did the Zung self-rating anxiety scale at the start. Then they did 6 weeks of conscious connected breathwork, so 1 session per week, and we measured their anxiety at the end. And the men had slightly larger reductions. So everyone had reductions. We had statistical significance. We had an average reduction of like 11 points on the Zung self-rating anxiety scale compared to the control group, which just had a 1-point reduction. But the men had like an 11-point reduction compared to the women having a 10-point reduction. So not a huge difference, but my hunch is that if we had more men in that study, we probably would have seen greater reductions in anxiety from the men than the women.
And when they're doing this sort of conscious breathing, are they sort of getting images? Because I'm afraid to say I'm thinking very much as a psychotherapist, and that images are often a very powerful way of beginning to get healing.
Yeah, for sure. People get visions. People have mystical experiences. So mystical experiences can be things like So one lady in our study said, I met my sister in spirit, and she told me everything is going to be okay, and her anxiety went way down after having this transformative experience. Some people say they experience universal boundlessness, oceanic boundlessness. They were just one with the universe. Some people said, I met God, and I just had this feeling of like religious, spiritual wholeness. And they've done studies to measure the mystical experiences. So this study by Ehrman, what was a MAPS publication, a report on 11 years of people doing conscious connected breath work at a psychiatric inpatient center in San Francisco. And they found 80% of people had a mystical experience doing conscious connected breath work. And then another study by Puente, 2014, found that 10% of people in their 1-day study had a complete mystical experience. So yeah, some people would, a mild mystical experience might be seeing visions, seeing colors. A complete mystical experience is something like, complete ego dissolution. And that compares to 11% of people who have complete mystical experiences on psilocybin mushrooms. So you can see it's pretty potent.
And so where does one start if one was interested in doing breath work?
Yeah, as I say, it's a pretty complicated technique. You would need to find a facilitator. Obviously, I take people on. I do sessions over Zoom. I conducted the randomized control trial over Zoom. It was the first study to show that conscious connected breathwork is effective online. So I can work with people all over the world. If people want to find someone local, there's a website called the Breathwork Alliance that has a map of certified facilitators. So yeah, look for someone local. There's often local groups that people are doing. You can also do one-to-ones with facilitators, but I would definitely say look for someone who's certified, because as this breathwork industry grows, there are quite a few cowboys of people just doing breathwork without certifications and things.
And do you use psychotherapy with this? Because it seems to me that we need to get people out of their heads into their bodies, because that's where their bodies is where they feel the emotions. So less thoughts, more feelings. And breathing seems to be a way to help with this.
Big time. Yeah. So yes, if I'm working one-to-one with someone, we will do some kind of psychotherapy counseling before to sort of stir things up a little bit to get the emotional material alive in them so that they can go and process it during the conscious connected breath work. But we also have a 90-day intensive program that we're just about to launch, where we do like a series of exercises. Is a kind of like whole body reset for transformation, where we look at things like people's nutrition, people's sleep, people's exercise. And then they also come to these online conscious connected breathwork ceremonies, and we give them exercises before, like journaling, to bring up that material for processing during the breathwork sessions.
Okay, in a moment we're going to be looking at a letter that somebody sent in to me.
The Meaningful Life with Andrew G. Marshall. Please follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and visit our website, andrewgmarshall.com/podcast, where you can join our supporters club and unlock bonus material and other benefits.
My men's retreat runs from Sunday the 28th of September to Wednesday the 1st of October in the woods just outside Berlin, Germany. Step out of your daily stress. Take stock of where your life is going and deepen your relationship with yourself and other men. One of the reasons everyone feels more anxious is not just the fast-changing world, but how we've become more isolated. In particular, we are cut off from the wisdom and support of other men, mostly because we find it difficult to open up and be truly vulnerable with each other. In my 4-day workshop with a group of like-minded men, we can focus on what it means to be a man today and how we can support our sons to become balanced men. It will be a truly transformative experience, and I would like to share it with you. You can find out more about the beautiful location, the seminar house itself, and the costs on my website, andrewgmarshall.com. Click on the button Men's Retreat. Do it now, because we've almost filled half the places.
Podbean, your message amplified.
Ready to share your message with the world? Start your podcast journey with Podbean.
Podbean, the AI-powered all-in-one podcast platform.
Thousands of businesses and enterprises trust Podbean to launch their podcasts.
Use Podbean to record your podcast.
Use Podbean AI to optimize your podcast.
Use Podbean AI to turn your blog into a podcast.
Use Podbean to distribute your podcast everywhere.
Launch your podcast on Podbean today.
What does it mean to provide medical care without borders? It means we never ask patients, which side are you on, or how much can you pay? Instead, we ask, how can we help? At Doctors Without Borders, our job is to save lives. Our care is without borders. Our compassion is without borders. And our determination to treat every patient, no matter who they are or where they're from, is without borders too. Donate today at doctorswithoutborders.org/listen.
So if you'd like to participate in the programme, you can go to my website, www.andrewgmarshall.com/podcasts, and you can see a form there to fill in and send me a letter. And that's what this person has done. What do I do about my wife's anxiety? I've always known she needs a lot of reassurance and to know where I am. So I'll be forever giving her updates about what's happening at work, updates on traffic, etc. I keep my eyes fixed ahead when we're out together so she doesn't think that I'm interested in other women, and beyond elderly checkout women at the grocery store, I don't chat with any females. The anxiety is spreading to the children. They have to keep her posted about what they're doing, and she doesn't really like it if they go on school trips and even birthday parties. I tell her she has to manage her own anxiety, but she says if I loved her, I would help her. To some extent I agree, but it's getting more and more difficult, and I worry what will happen when the children become teenagers and are not so compliant. I keep things back from her so as not to trigger her anxiety, but she can sense it. What do I do? She says I knew what she was like when we married, but it's getting out of hand. So your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is such a difficult situation because I know that living with someone with severe mental health issues is really, really challenging for the whole family. And I really think the nuclear family is such an important thing. So keeping that family together, I think, has got to be a priority. And then at the same time, I think, my experience is certainly like you can never change anyone else but yourself. So focusing on this gentleman, focusing on his own mental health, increasing his resilience, I think has got to be the priority. And at the same time, I think that co-regulation is a really useful tool. Is like if he can learn to manage his own nervous system to tolerate the anxiety of the people around him, he can transmit his own serenity, his own regulated nervous system to his partner and to his kids as well.
So explain to me, let's have the co-regulation. So how would this gentleman go about hoping to co-regulate with his wife, assuming that, maybe she's capable of signing up for this. Let's do it both ways. She's going to sign up for it and then she thinks, oh, look, stuff and nonsense, and he's going to sort of lead it without her really being 100% conscious of it.
Well, I don't even think he needs to have her sign up. I think he just becomes a regulated person. And let's say that the wife is struggling with something. He can then help her regulate with his own actions by using his voice, speaking in a really gentle, soft tone can signal safety to that other person's nervous system, moving in a very slow and gentle and considered way, and just feeling the relaxation in himself, sending those signals, sending those the mirror neurons to that other person so that person can read this person's face and go, oh, okay, this person's feeling very safe. That probably means to me that I can feel safe. And maybe it also extends to some sort of reassuring touch as well, if she's receptive to that, just a hand on the shoulder, bringing her into her body in some way with that kind of loving touch, I think can be really useful.
Because actually, if our partner is panicking, we're likely to start panicking too. We're like, oh my gosh, and they're triggering us and we're triggering them by sort of, they're overreacting. We overreact to their overreacting, and we get a a negative cycle. And so what you're saying is we're just going to get into that place. And I think it's the second question I have about this. You said increase his resilience, because if he can increase his resilience, he can stay calm, and that could then help to co-regulate her. So how does he increase his resilience?
Yeah, I guess the resilience I'm speaking about there is nervous system resilience. There's obviously a lot of different kinds of resilience. So I kind of see the nervous system as this thing that has a sort of window of tolerance, and it's sort of the amount of stress that the nervous system can contain. There are exercises a person can do to increase their capacity for stress. Things I like are breath holds. So things like breathwork, like we teach on our 90-day intensive, ice baths, getting into discomfort in deliberate ways. Sauna is another way that we can increase our tolerance through deliberate stress that then leads to an overcompensation where our bodies, our nervous systems become able to take on more stress. So yeah, I imagine there's a scenario with this guy where his wife is very stressed. The kids are screaming. Everyone's running around mad. He's got stress at work. He's got stress with his family, and he's just about to boil over. And his wife comes to him with another thing, and he boils over. He shouts at her. He makes her anxiety worse. She makes him feel bad. And it's just a disaster, kind of like you just described. But with a greater capacity for stress from doing things like, meditation, breath work, ice baths, exercise, these deliberate discomfort exercises, it probably has more time before he spills over, before he loses his temper, before he walks away, that kind of thing.
I hope that was helpful. And if you'd like to participate as well, as I say, please feel free to write in, and I'll find an expert who will be able to help you, or at least we hope will be able to help you. So I hope that, as I say, was helpful. So as a witness on The Meaningful Life, Richard, I feel I have to ask you what makes your life meaningful.
Yeah, I think it is improvement. I am a bit of a sort of self-improvement junkie. I really feel like purpose has kept me going in difficult times. In the past, my purpose was getting into good shape, which was a kind of hollow purpose that served me for a few years and then became quite destructive with it, led to that eating disorder. Now my purpose is about helping people through breath work, through, mental health coaching, those types of things. And yeah, really spreading awareness about, the things that work, and also trying to protect people as well from things that don't work. There's a lot of scams in the supplement industry and those types of things. So I quite like to expose those types of things and be a really honest voice in the space.
And you've been on quite a large journey because you're English, but now you live in California. How come this huge place transformation?
Yeah, I'd always felt like California was the place for me. My mum was an air hostess for British Airways, and she used to fly London to LA, and she kind of developed a friend network over in LA, and we used to visit when I was a kid. And I just always thought wow, this is the center of the wellness universe. The weather is amazing here. People are so sort of driven and open. And just like I said, I'm into self-improvement. People here are very much of that growth mindset. And what actually took me here was I did my PhD here in San Francisco. So that's how I actually took that leap to living here.
And how's it changed you?
How's it changed me? I don't want to get too political, but I don't know if you've seen San Francisco, but it's kind of like Gotham City. It's kind of a lawless place. I've never felt so unsafe as I have in San Francisco. So it's kind of shown me the dangers of just one-sided politics. San Francisco is only extreme left and there's no other voices. And if you don't have balance, between political sides, it leads to places like San Francisco where everyone's leaving. So
it doesn't sound as if the transformation has been that positive for you.
No, I'm leaving. I'm going to Texas later this year. I'm going to Austin.
Well, good luck with that change. In the bonus material, we're going to be talking about biohacking. What is it? Should we do it? And that's going to be happening in a moment. And if you want to hear that bonus material, you can subscribe directly via Apple or Spotify. And if you want to become a supporter of The Meaningful Life and unlock the bonus material this way, here are the details.
You've been listening to The Meaningful Life with Andrew G. Marshall. You can follow Andrew on Twitter, like him on Facebook, and please leave a review wherever you consume your podcasts. Making, editing, and distributing The Meaningful Life comes with substantial costs, and we'd like to ask for your help. Visit our website, andrewgmarshall.com/podcast, where you can join our supporters club and unlock bonus material for every program, send in a letter to be discussed by Andrew and his guests, and join a community of other people seeking to make their life meaningful. At the gold level, you get even more benefits. Production of The Meaningful Life with Andrew G. Marshall is by Michael Dooney. Social media by Madeleine Healy. Sound engineering and theme tune by Sebastian de la Luz Mendoza. And I'm Susie Colick. Please tell your friends and spread the word. Thank you.
What does it mean to provide medical care without borders? It means we never ask patients, which side are you on, or how much can you pay? Instead, we ask, how can we help? At Doctors Without Borders, our job is to save lives. Our care is without borders. Our compassion is without borders. And our determination to treat every patient, no matter who they are or where they're from, is without borders too. Donate today at doctorswithoutborders.org/listen.
Let's talk photos, not just storing them, showcasing them. You've got images that matter. Whether you're a photographer, a business updating your followers, or just someone who wants to share life's moments the right way. So why hand them over to Big Tech's one-size-fits-all cloud? Big Tech companies are the fast food of photo sharing. Quick, easy, but not exactly gourmet. And what about your data integrity? JAlbum.net is the photo sharing solution that puts you in control. Want to host images on your own server? You can. Want a layout that actually reflects your brand or style? JAlbum's customizability is unmatched. And if you're a business sharing regular photo updates with your audience, this tool was built with you in mind. But don't just take our word for it. Over 230 million web pages have been created with JAlbum, and it's got stellar reviews on Trustpilot to prove it. So head to JAlbum.net to download your free software and try it out. When you're ready to upgrade, use the code PODCAST for 20% off. Your photos, your layout, your rules. JAlbum.net.